to Welcome to Jackie's Larry Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm finally doing my April wrap-up. So, first let me tell you about... Books almost slipped out of my hands. First, before I talk about the books that I did finish, I did DNF Children of Dune by Frank Herbert, the third book in the series. I decided I'm DNFing that series. I know there are a lot of people who love it and think it's brilliant and everything. I did like the first two books, and I do think it has some intriguing concepts. But there was, like, as some reviewers put it, a lot of speechifying and philosophizing, and some of the Freeman talk was very confusing. I'm not afraid to admit that. Maybe that means I'm dumb or something, but I had trouble following along with it. And the second parts, before it got, I did spoil myself and look it up because some people said in the comments on someone's review of things that happened in the book in their work, to supposedly prove it's not boring, because that particular reviewer thought the book was boring, and they were like, how dare she call their precious favorite book boring? Which I think it's her opinion. She can feel she's neither right nor wrong. That's just how she feels about the book. She's allowed to feel that way. And I feel like basically telling her, you're wrong, you're stupid, is not right. But then, that's how it can be with people on a certain book site. But anyway, so I'm sorry if and you guys love the Dune series. I just couldn't get into it anymore. I was losing interest. I was like, yes, I got 80-something%, so I got pretty far. And it didn't look like much, but it felt like I had a lot more to go, because I was just so exhausted from trying to get into this, to continue staying interested in the story. And I did think, though, there were some intriguing concepts. Like, the possession thing was really interesting, but I feel like it didn't take it far enough for me, and that's just how I feel. Okay, you may disagree and think it took it far enough, or probably thinking, how much farther could it have taken it? But that's how I feel. And I did like Aaliyah, the Lady Jessica and Ghanima storyline. I don't know if I'm saying Paul's daughter's name right, but it was very weird and hard to get. I think if I watched the miniseries, maybe, but it was kind of hard to get past, considering how that they were pre-born, the kids, so they were mentally adults. The way they talked to their grandmother, Lady Jessica, and everything, it was just, it was hard for me to wrap my head around that. And like I said, that's just how I am. That's just how I feel. So I'm sorry if you think it's brilliant and don't understand why I don't love it, but I'm not going to change my mind. I don't love it. I'm done with the series. Anyway, so alright, so I did read the last couple chapters of Robin Hood, the Henry Gilbert one, because I know there is another Robin Hood by Howard Pyle, I think the guy's name is. And I believe Claudia from Spinster's Library discusses Robin Hood. And I think she had read the book, and I don't know if she read this one or the Howard Pyle one, but one of them she preferred over the other. My feelings haven't changed over time. I love this. It was fun. And it's very episodic storytelling, and again, I was surprised that some of the characters that they put emphasis on in the adaptations were not as important, in the book. Prince John, they make him the main antagonist in all the adaptations, and he doesn't even really appear. He is mentioned, and he does eventually appear in the story, but most of the time it's all about, Robin Hood and his merry men and their adventures, and there are some other antagonists throughout the story, other nobles and lords, and, religious figures that are greedy and selfish, and I don't know why. I guess because they use God to hide behind. But yeah, so technically I finished it in the first couple days of April. but I read most of the book in March, so that's why I talked about it more so in my March wrap up. So I'm just mentioning it here. Okay, so the actual book I read, and completed to start out April was The Winter's Tale by Shakespeare. So it's actually a play. And I don't know if it's just because it's a play and it's supposed to be seen and not read. I didn't see, like, I did like it. I had a good time with the story, but every time I would tell people, I would comment on people's videos saying that this is the book I was currently reading. They were like, isn't it so funny? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. But I wasn't like laughing out loud or anything. Like, maybe I would probably find it funny if I was watching the play. And it's not exactly what I thought it would be. I was by the title, The Winter's Tale, I was thinking it was more. Now, I know, of course, Shakespeare's known for, a play on words and being clever and, a little cheeky. I'd get that, but I was still kind of expecting by the title, like something like a folk tale or an actual, like a fairy tale or something. Like when he wrote A Midsummer Night's Dream, or like, I was also thinking it would be probably more like the Winter's Night trilogy by Catherine Arden, but it wasn't. It was, I mean, they do make reference and like an inside joke to the title, but in the notes from the people who created this edition, they talk about that the title is referenced and supposedly this is A Winter's Tale. But it starts out with this king who he invites his friend, who's another king, Polyxenus, to visit, and then he wants his wife to encourage him to stay, but but Polyxenus and the queen are, in his eyes, flirting a little too much, and he thinks, oh, they are having an affair, and puts her on trial for it, because it means, oh, she's a traitor to the crown, and she's pregnant, so he thinks, oh, this baby must be my ex-best friend's child, and then she dies, or he's told that she died, and his men are like, okay, what about your daughter and everything? He's like, no, this is not my baby, it's my friend's baby, it's a bastard, get rid of it or kill it. And they're like, are you crazy? And so they send the daughter away to live coincidentally to his ex-friend's kingdom, and she is taken in and raised by a shepherd. And eventually she does find out the truth as she becomes an adult and decides to go back and be like, hey, what's up? Why did you want them to get rid of me? And he just apparently over time gets more crazy and more paranoid, which I guess maybe because he's crazy, that's the funny thing, because it comes out of nowhere. He just assumed, oh my god, you guys are being a little too intimate. You must be cheating with each other. And so maybe that's why it's funny, because it's so ridiculous. It just came out of nowhere, at least in the other Shakespeare plays. It doesn't entirely come out of nowhere, these crazy, beliefs that these people have. And it was just, it was weird. I mean, again, maybe it would be funnier if I, watched the play, but, and yes, we do have Shakespeare in the Park in our community, but there's no guarantee they're gonna put on The Winter's Tale. I think they mostly do the very popular ones. Now, I do think there are some Shakespeare plays you could get by with reading them and still enjoying them and seeing the humor and seeing the drama and the sadness of it. It depends on how you read it. And sometimes if you're, the good thing about reading this in school is that they will discuss it and analyze, and people will explain to you what you might have missed or what you don't understand. But some of them I do think that they need to be performed. You need to see them to really get into them and to see the humor. And I'm sorry, I just didn't. Like, the story was okay. There's nothing wrong with the story. It's just, I didn't, and I think the humor is supposed to be that the king gets a little cuckoo and jumps to these crazy conclusions. Like maybe it's irony or something. I don't know. I feel bad. I feel dumb, but I can't understand why this. A lot of people are like, "Oh, this is so funny." Um, but yeah. So this was just okay. I mean, I liked it better than The Merchant of Venice. I mean, I feel bad because then I feel like since I didn't love it, maybe I should just donate it. But I've been getting these particular edition. These are the ones I want. This one, I want those Barnes and Noble ones, but I haven't kept them because I ended up not liking the play. Like it's the same thing with Merchant of Venice. I didn't love it. Like I thought it was, not a. It did get me thinking a lot, but it wasn't one I feel like, oh, am I gonna read this again? And I'm like, let me get rid of it. Like I don't any none of my I only have one other Shakespeare play, which I do know I like that one, but it's also not that size. It's the mass market size, and that's Much Ado About Nothing. Okay, so I think that was when after I read that was when I went back to Children of Dune and then DNF'd it. So the next after I decided to officially DNF the Dune series with Children of Dune, I picked up A History of the Philippines by Louis H. Francia. From Indios Bravos to the Filipinos. And this is basically, it's a brief history about how the Philippines, how they started as these islands where the people were, they were free, they had their own gods and goddesses, and they were happy and content. But then Spain came and took over and was like, we're gonna turn you into Christian and we're gonna basically enslave you and make you our little pets. And they introduced religion, and the government was basically church ruled, so the friars and bishops had a lot of power. And Noli Me Tangere, aka Touch Me Not, is the author, and Jose Razal's sequel to that is all about that. He was very important at the time, and the book talks about him, of course, and then he talks about how he got executed for it. First he got exiled, and then he got executed. He comes back and gets executed. And then, so I definitely recommend reading that book if you are interested. And this also, you get, like, America shows up and, fights against Spain. There's a war between them. They win. They take over the Philippines. They make them an American territory. And they're basically do almost the same thing, except for they're like, you can, have your own language and everything, and you can do what you want, but you still have to answer to us. And I think Spain, if I'm remembering correctly, Spain was the one that had them in the concentration type camps, I think. And what is really crazy is, of course, I would think it was President McKinley at the time, was like, oh, God spoke to me in my dream and told me I have to help these poor Filipinos. And, we're doing them a favor, basically. It's my Christian duty to help them and to guide them and educate them because, they're savages and everything. Like, they basically treated them how the English colonists treated the Native Americans. And in neither situation, whether it's America or Spain, it did not benefit them at all. And they just wanted their independence back. They wanted their own, because to make their own choices, live their own lives, and have their own belief systems and their own culture. But these other people wouldn't let them have it. Even America was like, we want to Christianize you, even though technically they were already Christianized because, they became Catholics and were introduced to Catholicism by Spain. So they were technically already Christian. And then World War II happens. And Japan shows up. And of course, at first, Japan was like, we're pro-Asian. We want to get rid of any other influences that are not Asian. But then, people realize that, actually, no, they're pro-Japanese. Which I think it's a great... And I'm actually, the book I ended the month with that I finished yesterday, When Elephants Dance. I'll talk about that more in a little bit at the end of as the last book. That was all about, that's historical fiction about what happened in World War II and this one particular family. And then, they do eventually get their independence in the 80s, 90s, but they do have their own little dictator. And actually, my parents were in high school on Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines at the time when the Marcos regime was running things. It was very informative, and and obviously there was a lot of stuff most of the stuff I did not know, so I thought it was a great, take on giving all this information. It's very detailed, so I think it covers a lot, and the first chapter does talk about their culture before they got taken over by Spain. So if you're interested in that, that the first chapter focuses very much on that. It's also very organized work, and so yeah, I definitely recommend this if you want to learn more about the Philippines and what happened during through those years all the way up into in the early 2000s. That's what this book covers. Okay, and then we have so I did listen to an audiobook, A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I enjoyed this. That was a fun story. It was very cute. It's in this world, they live in this little dukedom where they're run by a duchess. There are wizards that can throw fire and lightning bolts and all that. They are the most powerful wizards. But then you also have people that have gifts, magical gifts that are very obscure and random. There's one woman who can resurrect dead horses, so she's a bit of a necromancer. There's a girl that can turn invisible, and then our main character can bring dough to life, make dough come alive, and she gets a murder happens in the bakery that she works at that is owned by her grandmother, and the constable, the duchess's constable, shows up and decides, because she has this magic power and he doesn't trust magic users, he thinks, and it was in her bakery and she was the first one to discover the body early in the morning, he takes her to be interrogated because he thinks she's guilty. But she does get off. The Duchess realizes, what harm can her magic do. But the Duchess she seems very passively. She doesn't have a lot of power. And this constable has more power. And the little brother of the girl that got murdered shows up and wants to get justice for his sister. And they eventually find out that there are magic users like them being hunted down, and that there might be a traitor in the kingdom that might be trying to usurp the Duchess, and a war might be happening. So it was very cute, definitely more like a middle grade reading level. It was fun. I do think the obscure magic system was really creative and cool. The having characters that have random magical gifts that are a little odd and different. And I actually thought the whole our main character, her gift where she could bring dough to life, she created a sourdough starter that became kind of big. Bob, and I love Bob. He's so sweet and really cares about our main character. I don't remember her name. And I like her little gingerbread that come alive, and there are parts in the story where she's trying to find out ways to bring the dough to life, and she creates all these creatures, hoping that maybe she can do more with her dough than just bring gingerbread. So I thought that was really cool. I do feel and she was also one of those reluctant heroine types who, she does step up to the plate because she has no other option, but she doesn't want that role. And she's perfectly content with her life. She wants her life to stay the way it is. The little brother, I liked him, but, I do feel like a lot of, eventually he could become incredibly annoying. But I did feel bad for him because his sister was murdered. So, and he was all alone living. And he tries to be like a tough little punk and everything, but he's still just a kid. And it was, I like the narrator. Like I said, it's hard for me to rate narrators because I've never had any problems. I mean, there's only been one time where I was unsatisfied, and that was H.P. Lovecraft, the narrator for an H.P. Lovecraft stories. That's really the one time I was like, the narrator kind of is dull. And that it was cute, it was fun. I like how T. King Fisher is trying all these different. She's still writing mostly supernatural and fantasy and stuff, but she's doing all these different types of stories that in fantasy supernatural. I think she's like, I like how she's putting her foot in different, trying different things. So anyway, so yeah, that was enjoyable. Had a good time with it. I definitely would recommend if you just want a nice, fluffy, light story. Although, well, I will say the antagonist was unsatisfying. Like, I feel like the antagonist was barely in the story. Like, he just felt like that annoying mustache twirly villain that doesn't get a lot of. Of course, again, this is middle grade, or I assume it's middle grade. So maybe that's why the T. King Fisher doesn't make the villain too complex. But in the villain is not in the story that often. Like, he seems kind of like sort of a threat, but not really. So I was unsatisfied with the antagonist. That's my biggest problem. Okay, so then after I listened to, there was Rebecca's Tale by Sally Bowman. This is a sequel written by the sequel to Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. And this was really good, very page turning. You have the first part, it's done in multi POVs, and it explores what happened all those years ago, because there are some people that don't know the exact details of what happened. And did Maxim kill Rebecca? Did she commit suicide? Did she provoke him to kill her? And this Scottish historian shows up wanting to get these answers. And he might actually be connected to Rebecca too. And it's all about finding out who she is and what happened. We also get the perspective of Colonel Julian, who's a character that comes in later in the story. And he's not the only one. We also, Jack Favell returns as well in the story, and I feel like they stay true. Sally Bowman does stay true to the characters that Daphne du Maurier created, but I think she also develops them more, gives them, elaborates more on them, especially Colonel Julian. Like, she doesn't do a whole lot with Jack Favell. I definitely still feel sorry for his character, and just feel like he's very pitiable type of character and just kind of pathetic. But I do feel bad for him. And there's also the possibility that Miss Danvers might still be alive. We don't know. The second Miss De Winter, the narrator of the original novel, she is not on the scene. She is living in Canada at the time. And our characters, what kind of sets them on their path to find answers is because someone keeps sending, like, she sent a special diary to Colonel Julian, and someone sent the ring to Jack Favell. And so they're trying to figure out what happened and trying to understand her. And we also get the perspective of Colonel Julian's daughter, Ellie, who's the remaining child of his, because his other two children are gone. Like, Ellie, his son Jonathan died, and then his wife died, and his other daughter, died at some point. So it's just him and Ellie just been taking care of him, just like she took care of her mom. And she admires Rebecca. She admires her independence and would look up to her and like begrudgingly respects her. And so she's even more encouraged because she is reading Rebecca's diary. So we actually get a perspective from Rebecca herself. She actually gets a voice in the story. She's not just this shadow that's haunting the characters, and she's still haunting them. But we actually hear her voice. Like, throughout the original novel, we just got, like, people's perspective on her, people's, opinions of her, how they interpreted her actions. And, like, this book gives the impression that Rebecca is someone who's very bitter and angry and hates men, and that she put on these masks her whole life, pretending to be all these different people to charm people, seduce them, make herself memorable, make a spectacular impression on people, because it was a way to survive and get things the way she wanted to overpower people. And now we do get a little bit of her past, find out what her life was like before, with her parents, what happened to them, and kind of what led her down the path to ruining Max's life, basically, and getting revenge on him. And you almost feel she's justified in her actions. But then another part of me is like, she's kind of a bitch and very mean. Like, she's only nice to a couple people. Like, you would have to prove yourself to her and prove you're her kind of person that she would like and respect. And she's hard to please almost. And she's not genuine with everybody. And again, Ellie, is very impressed with her, while you have our historian is kind of like, he's intrigued by her, but he also sees that she's not always a nice person, that the world hardened her heart a little bit. And I like his character, but I've always been a sad soft spot for academic type characters that are just so clueless about social means and, interacting with other people. And because they're just so focused on their academic, like, studying and learning and trying to, get to the root of their subject. And he's just oblivious because Ellie likes him. But I think Ellie and he are both very biased. Like, they just can't have I think he tries to be less biased and open-minded. But I definitely think Ellie, who accuses him of being biased or not being fair to Rebecca, has a very biased viewpoint on her. Because, like I said, she admires her and she respects her. And she's also in a situation where she loves her father and has a very good relationship with him, but she is forced to take care of him, and she puts her own life on hold. And her dad's not a bad guy. He treats her with love and respect and kindness, but she kind of, like I said, put her own life on hold. And I think Rebecca motivates her to strive for more in her life. Also, Colonel Julian was another man that was in love with Rebecca, apparently. So, and he's like, you get a lot of that, I don't want to taint her image. I want to keep, this rose-colored view of her, this imaginary viewpoint of this woman. And he can't be objective either, any more than the other characters can. So I think if you loved Rebecca, you might enjoy this sequel written by Sally Bowman. I mean, you might not, but I think it's worth a try. And it does say, if you read Rebecca, you'll love it. Or where it says, if you read Rebecca and loved it, Bowman brings it to more colorful life. So please check this out if you are a fan of the original novel. I mean, yeah, like I said, you might not, because, nothing can compare to the original, but anyway, this was really good. I enjoyed it. A great take on expanding the story of the novel Rebecca. Next, I read the sequel to Anne of Green Gables, and apparently I'm the minority here. I actually really enjoyed this. I was watching Kaylee from Luminous Libro. She was doing that 1-star reviews of her favorite books, and she loves Anne of Avonlea, so she was reading 1-star review of those. And a lot of people apparently they preferred like Anne of Green Gables over this one, which is fine. I mean, you do you. But I actually liked both so far. I've enjoyed both of them. Anne is now 16, and because, after Matthew is gone, it's just her and Marilla. And Marilla is, she's getting older, her eyes aren't as good. So Anne is helping her take care of the farm, while also deciding to be a teacher, which she does love. She enjoys it, and most of her students are amazing and sweet, especially Paul Ivering, which some of those reviewers were annoyed by Paul's character because he's so sweet. And I could see where you could argue, as Kaylee said, that he is like very sick, like super sweet, almost sugary sweet. But there are kids that can be that way. And but yeah, this kid is like, I can see where he wouldn't necessarily be everybody's cup of tea, this kid. But he's a big fan of Anne. He thinks she's a brilliant teacher. But also, I think it's Marilla's cousin dies, and she had these two twin 7-year-olds, Davy and Dora. So Marilla decides to be a good Christian and take these boys, they're not both boys, these twins, in to raise them with encouragement from Anne. And Anne helps Marilla. Now, Dora is an angel. She's perfect. In fact, she's seen as almost too perfect. She's too prim and proper. Well, you got little Davy, who, for me, he's annoying and frustrating, and he leaves me exasperated. Like, I didn't know whether to laugh or, like, be like, ugh, with Davy. He got into trouble a lot with break things, and he was like, oh, I didn't know any better, and he was very all about questions, asking them questions and not trusting them when they tell them, if you don't do this, you're going to get punished. And a lot of times Anne and Marilla wouldn't know how to punish him, so they would just send him to his room without supper. And he got so used to that he was like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, yeah, I'm hungry, but you guys do it all the time. I'll eventually get food later. And he is just so, like, he is constantly getting into mischief. And Anne is someone who just does not want to discipline people. She might scold them or something, but she does not like the idea of giving them the switch or anything, which Gilbert and I don't remember who the other girl who became the teacher, like, they're like, and some of her neighbors are like, oh, you're gonna eventually give in and lose you're gonna have to eventually punish them when they do bad, because they're not gonna be perfect all the time. And it doesn't take, and she actually has one student, Anthony Pye, who just does not like her and doesn't have any respect for her. And she's just so frustrated because she's the type of person who wants everybody to like her. And in fact, she reminds me a little bit of Rory Gilmore from Gilmore Girls in that sense. Although she's not as spoiled and vain as Rory. Or maybe not vain, but Rory definitely likes material, She's definitely spoiled by her grandparents in that show. But Anne is definitely not spoiled. But and she does mature a lot in the story. Like, she still believes in getting lost in her imagination and stuff, but she also doesn't let herself get so lost that she's not paying attention to what she's doing. And she is very good with kids, but there is a moment in the book where she does eventually lose her temper with her students. And, she feels terrible. She feels awful about it. She hates that she did that she lost her temper. But everyone's like, you know what, you learned your lesson, and maybe it was necessary, because, like, especially kids like Anthony Pye are gonna need someone to, teach them a lesson. And Anthony Pye does learn to respect her, because she's forced to use the switch on him because he's just misbehaving so badly it, upsets her. And this is what caused him to respect her, and she does not like that. It bothers her. But anyway, also I do appreciate And I love Anne's relationship with Diana, but I do think that they're gonna go their separate ways, but still be very close and still have a strong bond. But I think they're not gonna, like, they haven't had a fight yet, but I feel like eventually they're gonna have a fight like they do in the show. Um, because they don't always understand each other. Anne doesn't understand why Diana's so determined to grow up so fast, and why she can't just let go and give into her imagination. But while Diana doesn't understand how Anne can just run away with her imagination and just get lost and still have these dreams and fantasies, even though she is getting older and becoming an adult. It's like Diana's told, this is childish, you need to grow up. And Anne refuses to do that, But Diana sees things that Anne doesn't, and she understands things about Anne that Anne doesn't understand about herself, about being a grown up. And then, and Anne allows Diana to, tells her how when adults are being ridiculous and silly, and that sometimes you gotta let it go and just be relaxed. And, having imagination is not wrong. Like, it's not immature, as long as you don't get caught up in your own little world and forget reality and just don't take over your responsibilities. Because, as I said in the first book, her imagination did get her in trouble a couple times and distracted her. But she has not done that lately. I think they are still very loyal to each other and care about each other and respect each other and still have a great friendship. But like I said, eventually I think they are going to fight at some point. They can't not fight. I think a lot of friends will have, maybe, or I don't know necessarily fight, but they will have a tense moment where they disagree. Because Terry and I, we've never had any fight or anything, but we have disagreed, and I have hurt her feelings, and so I think every friendship, if you don't fight, then there might be things that you're holding back, or if you don't at least have some tension or have some conflict with each other. So Mr. Harrison was fun, funny. He, with his bad attitude and snarkiness and just being trying to maintain his bachelorness and freedom, and he, trying to, while dealing with women, pushing people like Rachel and pushing marriage on him, pushing him to get married, and he doesn't want that. He's also kind of cantankerous, and Anne does make a bad first impression, but she, always wins him over eventually, and like she does everybody, like she won over Rachel Lynn. And also, I love Miss Lavender. She's so sweet. And I love how she's kind of a grown-up version of Anne. Who, not necessarily who Anne should become, because she has a very sad life. But the fact that she, like Anne, has not lost her ability to imagine, which I think is very important. And I love where she lives. It's very cottagecore where she lives, and just her little cottage with all the flowers and everything. It's just very sweet. And she, her relationship with Charlotta, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, the fourth, which that's not her actual name, but this young woman that she takes in, helps her out and stuff. I like that relationship. And, again, all the lovely descriptions of all the places that Anne goes, and referring to places that she named in the first book. And it's just so whimsical and magical and cozy, the story. And, again, another very episodic book, I feel like. And, it was fun seeing Anne get passionate and excited to teach. I have all the respect in the world for teachers. And it's just... And I do like how Marilla is continuing to soften and be a little more laid back. And I feel like Anne has just changed everybody's lives. She reminds me of Pollyanna, which I've not read that book. I haven't read the book, but of course I've seen the adaptation with Haley Mills, which I love. It's one of my favorite movies. And maybe I should read that book one day, so that maybe I could pass these books on to Charlie when she gets older and is able to read something like this. Anyway, so this was great, and I can't wait to read Anne of the Island. It's going to be so much fun. I'm really enjoying this series. Okay, And then I read a Nettle Milgrave book that was very light and, well, I was reading something in between those books, but I didn't finish it until the end of the month, going into, but so I was also reading a book that my sister gave me for Christmas called Pocahontas and Captain John Smith: The Story of the Virginia Colony. So this is a nonfiction, kind of late elementary school, early middle school nonfiction about the history of Pocahontas and Captain John Smith. It doesn't romanticize the relationship between Captain John Smith and Pocahontas like the Disney one does. But and say what you want about the Disney movie critics, like there are about some valid criticism, but you know what? It's a movie for kids. And it's still a great movie, great songs. It's not politically correct, but it's still a fun movie. I still love it. I still have a soft spot for that one. But anyway, this is more factual, but it doesn't get too much into the nitty gritty, and it does focus more on the English colonists, and it doesn't, like, it's hard to rate because it's like I said, it's for kids, so I do think it's a good starter book to get them thinking about this subject matter. But I can understand what some would be like, think that it doesn't, it gives them, like, it's hard to determine, is this good or not? Because, like I said, it does kind of sugarcoat things. And it's mostly focused on the English colonists. It doesn't exactly show it shows a little bit of their bad side, but not too much. Like, it does show them doing what they did to the Native Americans and destroying their land, but it's not too detail-oriented on it. It doesn't put a lot of emphasis on it. And, Captain Ratcliffe, they made him the antagonist in the Disney movie, but he's not that much involved. I mean, him and Captain John Smith are rivals, but it was surprising how little he was involved. And, there were some things I didn't know, like Captain John Smith being arrested, before they got to the colony, where they were going to have the colony, because they didn't trust him they thought he would want to take over, and all the other council members that he would kill them or something. So they didn't trust him at first. But then he became a powerful, leader. He did lead the colonist. And looking at the pictures, like I said, they kind of made him pretty boy, handsome man in the Disney movie, while in this, he's like old man in his 40s, probably. And he does show interest in Pocahontas for like a second, but then he realized, I'm too old for her. And because he does like her, and he's, and she's a very good friend, cares about the colonists, interested in them, wants to help them out. Because Poland is actually a lot more difficult than he is in the Disney movie. Again, that's the only adaptation I have to compare it to, because I know there was a live action that, not based on the Disney movie, but a live action, The New World, I think it was called, with Christian Bale, Christopher Plummer, I don't know who else was in it, but and I've never seen that, so the only thing I can compare this to is the Disney movie. So that's why I keep mentioning the Disney movie. You learn a little bit about the culture. It does have some of the Native American culture, and apparently they do find gold at one point. I did not know that. Like I said, most of my knowledge comes from the Disney movie, and that's inaccurate. So I have heard other knowledge before this, like I knew that the Disney movie's inaccurate, and I didn't know that Pocahontas was a child, basically a preteen girl when she meets John Smith and all that, but like I said, I did not know that they did find gold, a little bit of it. So they were determined, we found a little bit of gold, so there must be more, because they find these mines. So I guess they couldn't put that in the movie, because they had to, for the conflict and everything, they couldn't put in the Disney movie that they actually found gold. They have to be like, well, actually there's no gold here, so they were like, so in the Disney movie it's like, it's a waste of time, and the colonists are not that great because they're destroying their earth, their land for nothing. So, and because I think it's for younger readers, the writing is very simple, very just states the facts, but not like too much where it feels overwhelming or anything. Just like, again, I think this is a good starting place for kids, for young people learning about the subject matter. It was, and actually, I'm envious because my sister, because they live in Virginia, she took the kids to Yorktown and Jamestown, so she got to learn about this stuff. But I'm trying to remember when they went. I think they went after Christmas. So I think I got this book, or they might have gone before. I don't remember, actually, because first I was thinking, oh, she must have got this when they were in Jamestown. But then I want to say their trip might have been before Christmas. Like, it might have been more recently. So I don't know. But anyway, I think my sister also got this for me because it's vintage looking. It's a vintage book. And it reminds me of the Illustrated Classics books, those hardback books that you sometimes can get at Michael's still. With the painted cover, with the painted picture on the cover that represents the story. It's very glossy. They're white. It's kind of a kid's version of, history books, or classics. And, so I think this is really good, a good starting place to learn about. It does have pictures in here. So yeah, it's like, I feel like kids should read more, but I do think this is a good starting point. Okay, so the last book, I read most of this in April, but I finished it yesterday, and that is When Elephants Dance by Tess Yariza Holt. This is set during historical fiction set during World War II, but throughout the book, you have this family, this Filipino family living in their cellar with a couple of their friends, and a handful of their friends living there as well. The daughter of the main family is missing, still hasn't returned home, and her brothers just barely make it back from getting caught by the Japanese and almost being framed for killing one of their soldiers. Because this kid lost when his family was killed. He killed the soldier that killed his family. And so the girl's brothers, Roderick and one of our main perspectives, Alejandro, get taken into one of the camps and they're being interrogated and tortured. So they are able to get out of there, but not before. They are also interrogated on if they know the rebel leader of the guerrillas, Domingo Matapang. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And they, of course, don't want to give him away. And eventually he does reveal himself so the boys can escape to get out of there. And he is taken into the forest to be shot. And so throughout the story, when they finally return to the cellar and safe, some of the older people that are living with them tell stories throughout about their lives and give these kids lessons and teach them, and also to soothe them because they're absolutely terrified. So it's a multi-perspective story. You have Alejandro is the first perspective. You also get Isabel's perspective, because Isabel, the daughter, she is still out there in the world trying to get back to the cellar. And then you also have Matapang's perspective as well throughout, And we also, like I said, there's some of the older people tell stories. So throughout, we also get these stories of different times in the Philippines. This is so good and so sad and just tense. The first part is very jarring and disturbing, terrifying, and it's very upsetting. And reading this book made me think of the Diary of Anne Frank, especially with this family. Also, all these people living in this cellar trying to hide out. And it's just like you get, like I said, I like how it gets multi-perspective because you have different viewpoints of this war and everything, and different people responding to it. Like you have this rebel leader and fighting against the Japanese. You have the daughter who wants to be a doctor, but her mom doesn't want her to be, and she's struggling with trying to help. She crosses paths with Monteping and just kind of doesn't know like what to do, if she should help him or not. And then you have this Alejandro, this kid who just doesn't know how to, like, he's still just the kid, even though he's a teenager, he's still just a child who's scared and doesn't know how to handle things and is trying to be the man and take care of his brother and try to be brave. And it's all about family and identity and fighting, and these, a lot of these people are caught between, do they fight the Japanese or do they stay safe and protect themselves? And there's a lot of exploration of that theme in this book of, do we defend our country and risk our lives? Because if we don't, we might regret it. But then again, it's like, it won't matter because we could potentially be dead. And they don't know for sure if the Americanos, as they call them, are going to defeat the Japanese and win. They don't know what's going to happen next. So you have a good mix of characters that want to fight and characters that just want to protect their families and characters that are scared and don't want to do anything and just rather stay safe, and they're seen as cowards. And then you also have like characters that kind of are Japanese sympathizers. And you also, and then through the stories that you get throughout, you also kind of learn about the past and the origins of the kids in a way, how their parents' history. I like the story about the two sisters. It's you have this one of the women who keeps saying as an older lady that, even though I'm rich, I don't deserve all this wealth. I didn't earn it. So you get the story of what happened and how she lost her twin sister, and the mom who was grieving replaced her twin sister with another girl, and how this girl resents that her mom tried to replace her daughter and the sister with someone else, but doesn't know how to take takes out her anger at her new sister, and it kind of backfires on her, and she just has hate in her heart, and all we see is this other sister as a rival. And I also liked the story of this one of the people there is actually half Spanish, is Spanish himself, and he was one of the wealthy people, and he's a noble, and he crosses paths with these Filipinos and makes them not, and he ends up being rude to them, but then he wants to apologize. And so the daughter, he paints her portrait. He wants to draw her, sketch her, and the daughter, of course, is like, you hurt my mom, so why should I let you do this? Why should I let you try to earn the forgiveness? And he slowly gets converted and realizes that he's a spoiled rich boy, that he needs to be a little more understanding and help these people, use his money to help them. And it's very, and all these stories, like I said, it's very tense and sad, but also very beautiful. Like I said, it's about family and the importance of family, and just like your country and fighting for your independence, and the struggle. Again, another moment in history where Filipinos struggled and were afraid and like treated like they were less than human, that they were just savages. And it's the ending is very bittersweet, is all I'm gonna say. And probably the most complex characters are probably Monteping and Valenciana, I don't know how to say his name, because they were both kind of straddled the line. They were both kind of caught between two sides, and not everyone liked them being, and they both had to make a choice eventually and choose a side, and which is not always a great situation to be in, especially if you're in the middle of a war and you kind of understand both sides. But then if one of the sides you understand is not great and not nice people, you're gonna look bad and look like a traitor, and like not everyone agrees with your methods, your choices on how to handle things and what to do, and it's so they put up with a lot. They are both kind of caught in difficult situations, a rock and a hard place, as they say, and they're very similar, even though they hate each other and don't trust each other. They're very similar. They're not that different from each other. But anyway, this is really good. Again, I recommend this. Basically, I'm gonna recommend all the Filipino. There isn't one that I'm not gonna recommend, at least so far, of all these Filipino books that I've read, because I really want people to learn more about the Philippines, and I want to have more talk about the Philippines. People always talk about all the other Asian countries, but I've not heard people talk about the Philippines. They have suffered too, and they've had, deep history, and they deserve to be talked about too. So I finished that yesterday afternoon before, after my, one half of my doctor's appointment. But I read most of it in April, so that's why I'm talking about it now. So that's all the books I read in April. So currently I am reading The Tale of Genji, an abridged version, but I do have, which I need to check that, I do have the whole novel with all 50, I think it's 52 chapters on my Amazon wish list, the deluxe edition, Penguin edition, so maybe I'll get that. I'm hoping I'll get that version, because I'm liking this so far, and I probably will enjoy it. It's kind of a fairy tale romance story, because I know that Genji is someone that there's a lot of women he falls in love with. And now, by today's standards, it might not be seen as a romance, because he does sound like a player, but maybe not. I haven't read all of it yet, so I just started reading. I'm in the middle of chapter 2, and I'm kind of waiting until like in the evening when the sun is lower, because in the afternoon it's high and it makes me tired because of the heat. So I'm kind of waiting before I sit outside and read some more of it, and because chapter 2 is kind of long. I am also reading. I read a little bit more of The Eyes of the Dragon. We meet the two sons, Peter and Thomas, and now King is talking about Thomas and his who he is. But we first are with Peter, who is like a little saint, and but he's also seen as a good king. Like the last part I read, he was all about being there for this horse, like because the horse had I think a leg that was injured, so the stable master was going to kill the horse, but then Peter is like, "What are you doing? You can't kill this precious animal." And even the veterinarian shows up and tells him, "Okay, yeah, the horse is not gonna get blood poisoning because that's ridiculous, but it's not gonna last long. It's gonna end up limping." And Peter is determined to save this horse and have it as his own pet. And like I said, that's when King starts introducing us to Thomas and who he is. And he's also the one that Flag wants to be king. While I think everyone else likes Peter and thinks he's the better choice. And it's weird when I'm reading this. I realize that the writing style in this one is very different than what King normally writes, and I think that's because he's considering his audience. The audience he wants for this book might be younger readers, like teen readers. Although I'm sure there are a lot of teens that read. At least as a teen, I attempted to read Stephen King. But I wanted to read The Tale of Genji because it's a little less heavy and dark of a story. After having read finishing When Elephants Dance. I want to read something a little lighter, but not exactly middle grade yet. Not like 100% like. And I also wanted to. I don't want to like. I feel like if I go too off the theme of, and read a book that's not, one of the Asian cultures, then I feel like that could potentially throw me off of, my plan to actually, for once, read AAIP, or PEI, Pacific Islander, literature. So I feel like that's why I just, I figured now was a good time to pick up The Tale of Genji. Anyway, so that is my wrap up and what I'm currently reading. What did you guys read in April? Please feel free to share in the comments below. And if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. It does help my channel a lot if you do. And please, and if you want to see more videos, subscribe and also click the bell icon to be notified about my latest videos. Like I said, you don't have to. And I think I already said give it a thumbs up if you, I don't think actually, maybe I didn't. So give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And I hope you are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye!